Cool. So I'm Ben. I'm the archaeological curator at the Northamptonshire Archaeological Resource Centre, which is the county archaeological store for Northamptonshire. My day job is normally I look after lots of cardboard boxes full of stuff. So just as a start, Northants, where is it? No one knows where Northants is, or a lot of people don't know where Northants is because it's a slightly dull county that's on the way to other things. So it's got part of the A1M and the M1 going through it, and people know it because of the Watford Gap. But it is actually an interesting county, and I feel like it's kind of fairly representative of actually kind of where we are as a sector in terms of well-being things. So I'm talking about the whole, all of the well-being projects that are happening in the county, but also other aspects of well-being archaeology that's sort of happening that's beyond the actual formal projects that often we talk about in these kind of conferences. And then just very, very brief thoughts about what it actually means both to the participants, obviously it has an impact, but also to ourselves as archaeologists, which I hope will be the link. So I'm first going to go through 4 different funded projects actually 3 funded projects and 1 unfunded project that have taken place in the county. The first of these was Delaprey Digs, which Sadie mentioned briefly. This was a collaboration between Mola and Delaprey Abbey. It was a test pitting project that took place at Delaprey Abbey, but most importantly, it was involving the General Practitioners Alliance for Northamptonshire, and it was the first attempt to do an archaeology on prescription type project in Northamptonshire. It was a fairly small scale project. It was a couple of test pits. They did finds analysis. They did illustration. And it was fairly small scale in terms of the number of participants, but it was a really important step to basically say, this is something that can actually take place in Northamptonshire. And I know that both organisations are keen to carry on this type of work. Next slide. No, sorry. There you go. It's not showing up on the laptop, sorry. So the other, another wellbeing sort of project that's happening in the county is at Stanwick Lakes. So Stanwick Lakes is a heritage and ecology visitor attraction in the county. They have, I think it's about 600 acres. They do lots of kind of wildlife stuff, but they are also doing heritage activities. And they have had a series of small HLF bids that have sort of been sustaining some of their heritage work. So from a wellbeing aspect, they do formally do wellbeing walks. They've been doing that for a number of years. But they also embed wellbeing activity into all of these HLF bids that they are doing. So you can see there is these people who are doing the Iron Age Garden, I think it is. They've got the Weavers Guild of Spinners and Weavers of Northamptonshire based there, and that's a kind of community group where lots of people get involved, and it's got really positive wellbeing aspects. They built they built 2 Iron Age roundhouses, and then they built a boat out of a log. So they built a log boat. So these are all kind of experimental archaeology, really hands-on stuff to engage the public. But they've kind of embedded in well-being within all of these projects rather than it being a specific well-being project. Next one I'm going to talk about is Operation Phoenix. This is the first one that I'm involved with, so I can actually talk more about it. So this is a collaboration between Northants Fire and Rescue, led by this man in the middle, Aidan, who, if you've been to wellbeing conferences or events, you've probably seen him. He's lovely and he's amazing. He is a firefighter who works for Northants Fire and Rescue, and he saw the idea of Operation Nightingale and thought, I can do that for blue lights workers. And he came to us the weekend we opened as a site at the Arc, and said, I want to create a wellbeing project for firefighters. And then first year, I want to do Northamptonshire. Second year, I want to do the East Midlands. The third year, I want to do it nationally. And we were like, whoa, hold on. But it has been a really successful project. So it's a collaboration between Northants Fire and Rescue, Stanwick Lakes, us at the Arc, the University of Leicester, and Breaking Ground Heritage. And we all kind of deal with different aspects of it. I should say this project has been entirely unfunded. All of our organisations have taken it as part of our social responsibility to actually do this work. When Aidan came to us with the idea and the impact it could have, I was like, 100%, let's do this. So it involves a mixture of all sorts of different things. So we started with a wellbeing walk between Stanwick Lakes and the Arc, looking at all the different archaeological sites on the way. We have done osteology, archiving sessions, small find sessions, Interestingly, the osteology sessions are some of the most well received. Something interesting around people who are suffering with mental health issues and human remains that I think really needs some investigated at some point, but it has a really big impact. They've done experimental archaeology over at Stannick Lakes, and then they also participate in the Urchester Field School, which is the excavation that we run about 20 metres away from where the Ark is located with the University of Leicester. But we have done evaluation as part of this. Dickie Bennett did the evaluation, and there was a scale of 1 to 10. The participants initially in the first year started at around about 3 on that scale, and by the end of the project they were about 7. So it was a demonstrable improvement in those participants' well-being, and it does show the impact of it. Obviously, there are other factors that can be included in that. But we're now in year 2 of this. We're going into year 3, and we've now taken the approach that rather than having a set group of participants, we're going to allow everyone who's been on previous Operation Phoenix projects to just kind of get involved and work through it, because we're really conscious with these wellbeing projects. These are people who are suffering with their mental health, and then they just get dropped, and it's like, what do they do next? So we've kind of decided to actually embed it better into what we're doing. And then Wellbeing Wednesdays, which literally finished 2 weeks ago, and we have a kind of roundup session in a week's time. This is a project that was funded by the AHRC through MOLA, working with ourselves at the Ark, Earthly Art Studio, which is a artist that's based on site where the Ark is located, and most importantly, the NHS Foundation Trust through their Talking Therapy service. So this is an art and archaeology wellbeing project. So the idea is we take a bunch of objects from the Ark that have been excavated by MOLA, because MOLA bought the old county field unit and did about half the work in Northamptonshire. So most of the stuff we have is their fault. And then we take the artifacts and talk through them, and then let them just do kind of clay-based play and have a go at making stuff. And it has had a really big impact. It's been a fairly small group. We've learned some lessons that we are always oversubscribe these kind of sessions, because you're going to get some people who drop out. But it's been really successful over the last 8 weeks. And as of Monday this week, we had the initial conversation with Northants Talking Therapies with another part of the NHS Foundation Trust for Northamptonshire, that we are going to be offering this again. So separate to the AHRC funding, this is now going to be embedded, hopefully, within the NHS services for Northamptonshire as something that they can refer participants to, which, as the project team, we were all like, that's exactly what we wanted at the beginning. That's the whole aim of doing this, was to use this money that we could get to try and embed this and make it something longer term. And this is a really bad Anglo-Saxon I made that looks like an Iron Age person or whatever. I don't know. I made some terrible stuff. It was really good fun. But this isn't all of the archaeology and wellbeing that happens in Northants, and nor is it in any county where you have all of these projects. This is not the only things that happen. So I'm going to talk through a few things that I'm aware of happening in Northamptonshire, some I'm involved with, that do have a huge impact on people and communities. So, community archaeology groups. So every county has them. Some counties, they kind of groan when they talk about their local archaeology groups, but they are a really important groups of people who are investigating stuff in their local community that they really care about. And I know I work with every community archaeology group in Northants. There's 11. Only, 8 have got logos, so I could get them all up there. But they are all really invested in it. And it's very clear that this has a massive impact on their well-being. These are now groups of friends. So Midnag, this group here, they don't actually have their name on it, but they have been around since 1976. And there are people in that group who are now just lifelong friends. They also run an amazing community excavation where they always have loads of young people involved. But that is the sense of community for those people. That is their hobby. It's how they get out. And it's quite clear that some of these groups really were impacted during COVID when these people couldn't meet. So these are really important well-being elements that include archaeology, but often we kind of sometimes overlook the actual impact it can have on these groups. And they're all amazing. They're really fun to work with. Has it gone up? Yep. Volunteering. So I can talk a bit about volunteering at the Ark, because we do lots of volunteering there. But the Wellbeing has an impact on any volunteering. Everyone knows that volunteering can have can cause major improvements in people's well-being. But in terms of the Arc, we have around 250 volunteers and around 50 volunteers in a week. They help us with basically everything from reboxing archives to sorting through human remains. We now have a group that have sorted through 1,200 individuals. They help us with our excavation. They help us with our post-excavation. They help us with washing finds, doing tours, everything. But what's really, it's become apparent, and this was never something I intended to do. I'm a person who looks after cardboard boxes. This is the bit that I now love about my job. The involving and talking to people is the bit I genuinely care about. I should probably not say that, as I know there are other curators in the room, but I don't really care about the archaeology sometimes. It's about the people. But by doing volunteering, it's the strengths of the relationships that people build. It's the confidence that people get. We know that there are volunteers who were lonely after COVID or for various other reasons. They come to volunteer and now they've made friends. And that's a really important aspect of what we do. And it can kind of be summed up by this lady at the end there, Carmel. I've asked her that I can kind of talk about her story. So Carmel first excavated in 1980, which she probably doesn't want me to tell you all, sorry. But her husband, when she started volunteering with us, her husband was terminally ill. And it became very, very clear over the last 3.5 years that coming to us every week was kind of her way of getting away from the kind of the horrible things that were happening at home. And it was, she has told us many times that it was a thing that was really good for her to kind of keep her going. We also have another volunteer I literally was speaking to on Sunday who they have 3 children, a very, very chaotic home life because looking after 3 children is very chaotic. But her 1 day a week that she gets away from all of that is she comes and sorts through our metal finds. And it's really clear that volunteering can have such a major impact on people. Often people think of volunteering as a threat almost within our sector. They think of volunteering as someone, they're going to take our jobs. I always say that we're doing our jobs wrong if that's how we're looking at it. But our volunteers and the impact that we can have through volunteering is huge. Also, young archaeology clubs. So this may not be something that you really think about well-being, but I know firsthand we run an young archaeology club at the Arc. Neil, you're happy I've got your logo on there. And we've done everything from, going around the Arc and picking random boxes where someone somehow picked 1 in 25,000 boxes and pulled out a polished hand axe, which was amazing. We've done digging days. We made the research room into the Arc into a cave for our Paleolithic wall painting day, which was fun. But it's very clear that the groups like this have a major impact on young people. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was 7. I grew up in a place where there was nowhere near these opportunities. And it's very clear that, the kids who want to do yak and the kids who want to be archaeologists are all kind of slightly unusual, shall we say. But it's how you kind of see other like-minded people. And it's a kind of, and we also, yak is a very affordable thing. Where we are based is, we are between 2 very deprived towns, Wellingborough and Rushden. But actually Northamptonshire as a county, if you know anything about it, it's got towns that are deprived and very wealthy villages. So it's a very strange county. But this is an opportunity for people who wouldn't necessarily, at the age of 8 or 9 or 10, to actually be able to properly engage with archaeology. And they are a really important resource. And there's also how we get many future people going into our sector as well. And then finally, I wasn't sure whether to include this one because, metal detectorists can be sometimes controversial. But I was talking to our Flo, Ellie, this week, and I was toying with the idea of whether to include this or not. And she said definitely, because she estimates we have around 3,000 people who metal detect in Northamptonshire. So that is a huge number of people. She sees around about 350 a year because most people are finding, bottle caps and stuff like that. But we know that this has a major impact, and she has told us that this has had a major impact. People have told her firsthand that this has been prescribed to them as part by a social worker, that they should go out and do metal detecting, which is something that was news to me. 5 minutes, yeah, or 2 minutes? 4 minutes. Cool. All right. None. Yeah. So yeah, metal detectorists. I think it's something that we shouldn't disregard. That sometimes there's difficulties around the ethics and that, but it's also a really important thing that people are engaging with heritage and archaeology, and many of them are doing it for positive reasons. Um, just a very quick thing. We all know that archaeology can have a massive impact on well-being. We hopefully most of our experiences have been positive in that. But this is just a note that we got 2 weeks ago. One of our participants from Wellbeing Wednesdays, popped this in the letterbox, and it just kind of demonstrates the impact that this can actually have on people's lives. And that's the reason why we do what we do. Finally, just a few thoughts on what's the impact. So when I was putting this together, I was like, how to make it easy? The good, bad, the ugly. So the good, everyone involved with this gets a huge amount out of it. I don't think anyone who's involved with archaeology and well-being doesn't get something out of it. I've definitely had days when we were doing Wellbeing Wednesday the other day. I was very, very stressed. I've got loads and loads of deadlines at the moment, but I found my time to do 2 hours of doing that and delivering it, and then it picked me up for the rest of the day. It can have a massive impact. It provides really good opportunities for commercial archaeology, where outreach opportunities are not always the most common, to get people to actually see the public benefit. I mean, most of you, I'm sure, work in the field, anyone who works in the field, they don't get to see what actually ends up with the material, and this is a chance for them to see it. The bad is many of us who actually deliver these suffer with mental health issues ourselves. From our Wellbeing Wednesday project, and I've spoken to all the participants who have been leading it with me, there are 5 people, and all 5 of us suffer from mental health issues or have at some point in the past. 3 of us are currently on antidepressants. Some of that is quite work related. So that's something to really important to consider. I also think that can impact us in terms of delivery, because we do understand what the participants are going through. Not that having mental health issues is a good thing, though. And then the ugly questions. This is one I was kind of playing around with, like, are we actually qualified for this? I think personally there is definitely a place for archaeology, but that what our Flo Ellie said about people being prescribed metal detecting and then kind of flows aren't prepared for that, and it's something that we should really kind of think about as a sector of like what we actually put us in front of ourselves. And this is sort of touching a bit on what Sadie said. We are very reliant on external funding, particularly from the commercial sector. I work for a public-facing organisation. I know that I have the backing from all of our senior management, that I could just say, well, I'm now making this as part of my job, and it's embedded into my work, like Operation Phoenix, the Wellbeing Wednesdays, things like that can just be embedded into my job. Commercial archaeological companies, particularly the ones that are charities, should be thinking about that. We do have a social benefit. If we want to have a sector in 30 years' time, we need to show why we've got it. So, yeah, cool.